Hello everyone, this is Lakisha Spletzer and I'd like to welcome you to Kishaz Talks, which is my video log journey about my writing career, the stories behind the novels, or I should say the ideas behind the novels, and also some character talk about why certain characters are the way they are. Well, for tonight's video log, I decided that I should talk about my books that got published this year. Now, as mentioned in a previous episode, I talked a little bit about why I write and the motivation behind writing. Also, if you didn't get to see that video, I also explained that I am a self-published writer, although now the trendy term is to say indie author, which I kind of like that better. It sounds really fancy. But regardless of how you want to, as we used to say back home, skin a cat, the fact is I did try the traditional routes, the whole query process, the whole submitting manuscripts, and after getting disappointed and kind of being told that, well, the market's kind of got this already and we're not really looking for that and better luck next time, I decided, what am I looking for? What is my main motivation to writing? And my motivation is to write for you. That's right, you, the viewer, the reader. And it wasn't until I made that decision to not have the stars in my eyes and want to necessarily be the next millionaire, but to focus on why I was writing, that everything made more sense. So I write for you, I write for readers, and I don't have to have a huge following to make me happy. Just to know that a person picked up the book, read it, and liked it, or hated it, because, haters are always good. It means you do have critics. But just to know that, someone read my adventure, the adventure that was in my head that I put down on paper and enjoyed it, that to me is the ultimate compliment, and that's more of what I'm looking for necessarily than money. Money's nice too, don't get me wrong, but having honest opinions and having someone read what I wrote is, really, really what drives me to write, and it's why I decided to go the self-publishing route. Plus, I kind of enjoyed the freedom of designing, having my own cover design, picking something I wanted and not something that was imposed on me. And also the freedom to, say when it's going to be released and all that. But that's like a whole nother video log. But to get back on topic, tonight I wanted to talk about my first book that was published. And it's entitled Jewels. Jewels, Jewels. And the title has several meanings. I don't want to give a lot away because I do want you to read the book. And if you're in Florida, you are able to get it through interlibrary loan. I've got several copies floating around in the library system, so if you don't have the money to buy it and you really, really, really want to read it, which I hope you do, you can, go to your local library and request a book. So that being said, let's talk about Jewels. Jewels came about because of a anthology, open anthology submissions call that a e-publisher was doing. Romantic e-publisher, romance e-publisher rather, I'm sorry. And saw the call, and it was for a space opera. Now, for those of you that haven't heard the term before, you're not alone. I didn't really know what the term was either until I went and read the instructions for, what they were looking for this particular anthology. And space opera, the best way to describe it is if you've watched Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, and even Stargate, any of those type of shows are space operas. Lots of stuff that happens in space and lots of drama and, over the top. So it's kind of a soap opera, but in space, with all the accompanying craziness that goes with it. So they were doing a submission call, and I saw it, and at the time, it was still 4 months, in the future. And I thought, I'll get around to it, because at that point in time, my young adult novel, which was the second book I got published this year, called Rear Love, I was in the process of writing it and finishing up the first draft. So my focus was most definitely on that book, but the submission call intrigued me on a whole nother level, because I tend to write a lot of paranormal. I tend to like fantasy, and I like science fiction, but I never really sat down and tried to write a science fiction story, like completely by myself. So I wanted that challenge, and I thought, well, once I finish Real Love, I'll hopefully still have time to do this submission call. So I got around to finishing Real Love, and that August was when the submission call ended. And what you had to do, you had 30,000 words, and they were looking for novellas with the space opera theme. And literally, I wrote the first, I now call it the first draft of Jewels. I was in novella form. It had 27,365 words exactly, and wrote it in a week. I did it in 7 days, because the anthology deadline was 10 days from when I actually sat down and started writing. So yeah, I kind of put a rush on it, and I had a couple of people that were really good editors, went over it, looked over it, and it went through several sets of eyes, and we, got it as ready as it could be, and I submitted it. When I submitted it, I wasn't too thrilled with it. I felt deep in my heart that I could have done more, that I wanted to do more. So I was kind of on pins and needles, and then in December, they, announced who made it, and I didn't make it. So I was really rather, I'm relieved. Actually, it was before December. They told us in September was what it was. I think in December for something else. See, when you do so much writing, your brain kind of is always going. But they announced, who made it and who didn't around about September. So I was relieved, and I buckled down, and I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and add these other scenes in that were playing in my head that I couldn't put in a novella. Now, the actual characters from Jewels came from a blog post that I did on one of my older blogs, which doesn't exist anymore, and kind of lost the post, which is kind of sad. But I was doing an experiment in the first person, and enjoyed it, actually, because it was 2 separate posts done from 2 totally different characters. And I happened to just be on that blog for whatever reason that day, and was reading, and I went, oh, this is, I like this female that I'm experimenting with here with the first person. And wow, what if she was not just some random person? What if she was this? What if she was that? And that was kind of how Jewels came about, was from a first person scribble that I did. But she was considerably different from, the character in the blog post. I made her a little younger. She's 19. I didn't want her to be a teenager, but I didn't want her to be so far into adulthood that I couldn't make it work the way I wanted to. I wanted the story to be youthful and fresh, but without being young adult, which is kind of a fine line to do. And I also wanted to have something that the 18 to 21 crowd could sit back and enjoy, and not feel like they were still, being a teenager and not being considered an adult, because the story is very much an adult story. It's not for people under 18.